What is going on, you guys? NASCAR EJ coming to you from the NASCAR tube. You're going to be hearing that a lot, so get used to it. Thanks for joining me. Let's get this show rolling. Wow, what a 2014 season we had in the Sprint Cup Series last season. Kevin Harvick's our new champion. We've had a lot of news in this off-season, and I'm so glad the off-season is about over because I've gone about as long as I can without NASCAR racing. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Evan Jones. I'm 20 years old. I live in the proximity of the Nashville, Tennessee area. I'm an avid NASCAR fan. I enjoy NASCAR. I enjoy the sport. The sport means a lot to me. I've grew up on the sport, and I decided to create a channel on YouTube, and that's pretty well the whole story. I do have a Twitter, as some of you might know. It's at NASCAR EJ. You heard me say at the beginning of the video here. If you notice, that account is not very active. It has not had much on it right now. I plan on getting that going back here pretty soon. And as this channel goes, I want to explain to what I want this channel to become, what I want it to be. As you notice, you don't have anything on your screen. I know this is a YouTube and don't have anything on your screen yet. You can't see me. You're looking at a black screen with letters, which is all we can really do right now. I plan on getting a camera up with a boom and a nice mic, have like a radio show going on. That's my whole goal to get this channel to, and hopefully by the midway through the season we can have that going on. And really excited to get this channel going, and I really hope that we can get the support from you guys watching at home or wherever you are. They'll share or a like, subscribe to the channel is so much helpful. Even a comment on the videos is such a help, and get sparks of discussion and gets this going. I don't want to call this a NASCAR here's Evan Jones's opinion. I want this to be a discussion channel, and that's what I really would like this to be. And I'm fair, I'm open. I don't have per se a favorite driver, and I do have drivers that I like more than others, but I do try to keep it fair as possible. And what this channel not is a gaming channel. And I know when you go to YouTube and you search NASCAR, I know NASCAR itself has its own YouTube channel, and I know some guys have YouTube channels that are NASCAR fans as well. Most of those guys, and you may be one yourself, big into gaming videos, NASCAR 14, NASCAR Inside Line, and even iRacing. And I will support iRacing. I support all of them, but I'm not an avid gamer. Now I do game a little bit, and I enjoy it on the side. I'm not a big gamer, and like I said, I want this to become a discussion channel and really not a gaming channel. I'm not ragging down gaming, but I really want this to become a discussion channel, not a gaming channel. Now let's change gears here a little bit, and let's talk about some news here in the off season, what's happened. A lot of these we already knew before the season ended, but we'll go ahead and go over these. I don't want to get into the rules package or anything today. I just want to talk about the driver changes and crew chief changes this season and who all's going to what team, and I'll give you my opinion on how I think those guys will do and how I think they need to improve. Kyle Busch will be now paired with a new crew chief, Adam Stevens. And if you don't know who Adam Stevens is, Adam Stevens was the crew chief on the Nationwide Series, or now what's called the Xfinity Series, on the number 54 car, the Monster Energy Toyota with Joe Gibbs Racing. Him and Kyle won 19 races over the past 2 years. And if that doesn't show that this guy doesn't have a resume for this, he has 4 seasons. And it doesn't even tell you how many races he won in the first 2 years that he was in. But, that's an average of 8 races a season. Yeah, the cars are easy to drive. If he's calling the right shots on top of the pit box, there is no doubt that this guy can do what he can do. And Busch is coming off a Nationwide season with his worst average finish. His average finish was 17.6, and that's since his rookie year. And that's not something to be proud of, but he's been focusing on this new chase system in the Sprint Cup Series, so that could have been a driver error. But so many times we see these guys come up from the Nationwide or the Xfinity Series. That's going to take me a while to get used to saying that. But so many times we see them come up from the Xfinity Series and they think they can do well, but they end up They kind of on a slump for the next few years. Joe Gibbs Racing, after last season, I mean, they only won 2 races. Kyle Busch won at Fontana, and then they won a plate race. And to me, I really don't count, in my opinion, for horsepower, I do not count a plate race, which was Denny Hamlin at Talladega at the Aaron's 499 in April. I do not count that as a horsepower win. And that was the only 2 races not only Joe Gibbs Racing didn't win, but Toyota all season won in the Sprint Cup Series. Denny Hamlin gets Kyle Busch's old crew chief, Dave Rogers. And this kind of makes me worry a little bit. Dave Rogers knows Kyle Busch, and which you can say, well, Adam Stevens worked with him in the Nationwide Series. Yeah, but not every weekend. Not every weekend. He didn't work. We all know how Kyle Busch can be. And that kind of gets me worried a little bit, is how is Adam Stevens? I mean, go back to Bristol when Kyle was talking about pit road speed back in September, I believe it was. Kyle goes crazy over the radio and saying, if anybody talks to me about pit road speed limits one more time, and Dave Rogers just says, take yourself back to the bus. And just tells them bluntly, straightforward. And I don't know if Adam Stevens can do that. We all know how Kyle Busch works under pressure. And I don't believe that in the Xfinity Series, Kyle Busch had much pressure. I mean, he would nearly lead every single lap of the race. It was a no-brain question that he was going to go up there and he was going to win that race because he won. He was the best one on the track. And that's one thing that I'm nervous about with Adam Stevens coming in along. But I guess we could say the same thing about Dave Rogers when he came in a few years ago with Kyle Busch. But Steve Addington was his old crew chief, and I guess we could ask the same thing about Dave Rogers. You know, how is he going to handle Kyle? But Kyle's, I think, is going to become more mature. He's got a baby on the way with him and Samantha, and we saw how Kevin Harvick changed after he had a child. And I think that will be one way that will change him in a way. But really excited to see Adam Stevens come into the play. But again, he's going to have to prove himself that he can be a Sprint Cup crew chief. Dave Rogers with Denny Hamlin, as we said, I think that will be a great pair to stay with. I think they're going to be really good. I think he's going to be great on top of the pit box. And I heard Denny say that every time I drive Dave's equipment, it's always super fast and that they work well together. So I think those guys will be good. Matt Kenseth stays with Jason Radcliffe. I don't think much anything's going to change there. They need to get back on their A game. They fell off last year. The biggest story of all, but Carl Edwards will be joining Joe Gibbs Racing from Roush Fenway Racing in the number 19 Toyota Camry. Now he is paired with Denny Hamlin's old crew chief, Darian Grubb. And I think this pair here is somebody to be watching out for this season. And I'm not the only one predicting it. We saw how Matt Kenseth did after he changed from Roush to Joe Gibbs. And that camp at Roush Fenway, if you notice, Roush Fenway only gets drivers that start out with him. He doesn't buy drivers from other teams. And maybe that's an out-of-date concept. Maybe that needs to change. But I think Carl and Darian Grubb will be a great pair to work with. Carl competed against Darian in 2011 with Tony Stewart. Darian was with Tony Stewart and won the championship. It was a tie. So I think Darian knows how Carl plays maybe in a way. So maybe that's a good thing. And I think Darian Grubb is one of the best crew chiefs on pit road. Greg Biffle will now be paired with Matt Pusha on the Roush Fenway Racing side, which that's no change from 2014. We know Greg's had some history with not getting along with crew chiefs per se, but Greg Biffle, I think it's time to win a championship. And he's tried so long, so hard. I think he needs to just push it and go win a championship, and we know he can do it because he's one of the hardest racers on the track. And I don't know if Matt Pusha is the right crew chief for him, but the only way we can really do is just watch and find out. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will be with Nick Sandler, and I didn't even know who Nick Sandler was. I had to think, who was Nick Sandler? And he was actually the head engineer on Carl Edwards' car last year with Jimmy Finning up on the pit box. And we all know Jimmy Finning is not on the pit box anymore. But Nick Sandler is going over to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And I think it's time that Ricky needs to get victory lane as well. He's getting better. He's still kind of in the same rookie standpoint in a way. He's not a rookie anymore, but he needs to get there. Get that W. He gets close. Got really close at Bristol back in March last season. I think it's time that he can get up there and win a race. Trevor Bayne is now coming to Roush Fenway Racing in the number 6 car. The number 6 is coming back in the Sprint Cup Series. That hasn't been there since David Reagan raced it when he took Mark Martin's car. Trevor Bayne will be paired with Bob Osborne, and if you don't remember that name, he was crew chief for Carl Edwards a few years ago before Jimmy Finney came along. Really, if you don't know where Bob Osborne's been, he hasn't been a crew chief in a while. He's going back up on the pit box, but he was actually assisting RFR's engineering efforts over there at Roush Fenway Racing. So hopefully we can see Bob come back on the box and make a good run this season with Trevor Bayne. Wood Brothers actually have a new alliance with Team Penske, and Team Penske does not have any changes this season, so nothing changes with them. Ryan Blaney will be paired with Jeremy Bullins, which was the crew chief for the drivers on the number 22 car, the Discount Tire Mustang for Team Penske in the Xfinity Series last season. So it's another one of those examples of saying, here's a nationwide or Xfinity driver coming up to the Sprint Cup Series. He's got to prove himself. Hendrick Motorsports, Casey Kane will now be paired with Keith Rodden. He was the crew chief for Jamie McMurray in the number 1 car last season with Chip Ganassi and with Felix Sabates. Jeff Gordon will be down with Alan Gustafson with all the news coming with him. Still, he will finish out his full-time career in NASCAR with Alan Gustafson. Jimmy Johnson, of course, will be paired with Chad Knaus. Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets a new crew chief, Greg Ives. This has been big in the news. Greg Ives was the crew chief on Chase Elliott's number 9 car in the Xfinity Series last season, which they did win the championship in. And I got a feeling that this would be a good pair to watch out for. I hated to see Steve Letarte go to the broadcast booth, but that's the choice he has to make, and that's respectful for that. I don't think we'll see Dale Jr. go straight off winning. I think it will take some time to get worked into place, and I could be wrong. Greg works for Dale, or worked for him over at Junior Motorsport. Greg really knows Dale in a way, and Chase Elliott will actually be driving the number 25 car for Hendrick Motorsports for, I think they said 5 races this season. Don't know those races yet. I think they've released them, but I just haven't looked at them. Stewart-Haas Racing, not much changes here. There's only 2 changes per se. Kevin Harvick, of course, will be paired with Rodney Childers. I think those guys are probably the top guys in that team. There ain't no doubt. Tony Stewart is actually still paired with Chad Johnson. Tony Stewart, wow, man, I hope he can get back in the groove. And I know Tony, and he's got to get back in victory lane. It's just every year, the past 2 years, he's just always hit a big bump. And I think he's getting back to normal. It's pretty rough on him with this whole deal up in Canada and the dirt track, but I think everybody was a Tony Stewart fan while that happened, and I really hope that Tony can get back in victory lane here pretty soon. And I think Tony has still got the talent, and I think it's still there. I saw him in the Hall of Fame induction, and he introduced Fred Lorenzo into the Hall of Fame, and Tony seemed more back to himself. He had a grin on his face, and he's really glad to see that. And I actually think he's fixing to have another leg surgery, is what I heard. I think Tony Stewart will get back to victory lane this season, no doubt. Kurt Busch will now be paired with Tony Gibson, which was Danica Patrick's crew chief, and now Danica Patrick will be with Daniel Knaus, which was with Kurt Busch last season. So basically, Kurt Busch and Danica Patrick swapped, and I think this is a good choice. I think Danica really needs to be paired with somebody else. They're going to get her in victory lane. To say I don't like Tony Gibson, I think he's a fine crew chief, but sometimes you just need a swap, and I think that's what they're just trying to work out. On the RCR side, no change with Austin Dillon or Ryan Newman. Paul Menard gets a new crew chief. It's another one of these lead engineers stepping up to become a crew chief on Paul Menard's number 27 Menard Chevrolet. Justin Alexander was the lead engineer for that car, for that number 27 Chevrolet last season. That will be a good step-up call on that side. Chip Ganassi racing with Felix Sabates. Jamie McMurray will now be with Matt McCall, which was the race engineers. Another one of the engineers is a race engineer. He was the race engineer for Ryan Newman on the RCR side last season. With RCR and Chip Ganassi's alliance there, I think that will work just fine. On the Furniture Row Racing side, the number 78 Chevy SS, driven by Martin Truex Jr., will be now paired with Cole Pearn. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Pearn. He was the lead race engineer for that car. It's another one of those engineers coming up to step up in the crew chief box. Cole Pearn was the lead race engineer for that car last season. Front Row Motorsports, Cole Witt will now be in the number 35 car. Cole Witt drove the number 26 car, if you don't recall, with BK Racing. He keeps his same crew chief from BK Racing, Randy Cox. I think these guys will be a good pair. David Gilliland now is with Donnie Wingo, which was the crew chief for Trevor Bayne and the Wood Brothers. Go Fast Racing, Mike Bliss will be driving the number 32 Ford Fusion. Bobby Labonte will take the car and race it 4 races. The Motorsports Group, Ron Hornaday Jr. will be paired with Pat Tryson. And Pat Tryson was the crew chief for the number 31 Chevrolet in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Turner Motorsports. And he will be coaching the number 30 Chevrolet SS driven by Ron Hornaday Jr. H. Scott Motorsports, Michael Lynette will be driving the number 46 Chevrolet SS Jay Guy on top of the pit box. Lynette raced the number 7 Chevrolet in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series for Tommy Baldwin Racing last season. Jay Guy was the crew chief for David Gilliland on the number 38 car last year. Alex Bowman will now take Michael Lynette's old car with Tommy Baldwin Racing, the number 7 Chevrolet SS. Bowman was with the number 23 Toyota at BK Racing, and now taking his spot at BK Racing will be J.J. Yeley. That's really all the driver. Oh, well, we have, excuse me, I'd left one out. Sam Hornish Jr. Now that Marcos Ambrose went back to Australia to race the V8 Supercars over there again, Sam Hornish Jr. will be paired with that team, number 9 Ford Fusion at Richard Petty Motorsports, and they also are allianced with Team Penske this year. They have moved their headquarters up into Morrisville out of Concord. If you haven't been to Charlotte, you have Concord, which is north of Charlotte. You have Morrisville, or way north of Charlotte. And a lot of the race teams are located up there as well. But Richard Petty Motorsports has moved from across the street from Roush Fenway Racing to up to Morrisville, close in the proximity of Team Penske up there. Sam Hornish Jr. will be paired with Drew Blickensturfer, which was the crew chief on that car when Marcos Ambrose drove it last season. Now I want to take the time to talk about some of the scheduling, and I don't want to go into the actual Sprint Cup Series schedule for 2015, but I want to talk about Daytona. There's 4 events here. I'm reading it straight off of NASCAR's website, if you're wondering. Sprint Unlimited will be Saturday, February 14th on Valentine's Day night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be on your Fox Network television. Not Fox Sports 1, but your Fox Network television. Really excited for this race. There's only 25 drivers filled into the spots, the winners and pole winners from last season, and I think some of those guys have dropped out into the race and they filled them back up. Don't know exactly who those drivers are at this moment. The Budweiser Duels will be on Thursday next week, Thursday, February 19th. The first one, and these are actually at night now. They did it last season. They started the Budweiser Duels at night instead of during the day, and I think this will be really interesting to set the field. It will be February 19th, Thursday night. The first duel will be at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and the second duel will be Thursday, February 19th at 8:30. It's an hour and a half ahead, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and those will be on Fox Sports 1. And then the Daytona 500, of course, will be on Sunday, February 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time Zone on Fox on your network television, and that's the big race. So anyway, well, thank you for watching this black screen with letters, I guess you could call it. Really excited for this channel to take off, and if I could get your support, if you could share this channel, if you could share the video, it would be good. I got to work on some of my broadcasting skills a little bit, I guess, but that only just takes practice, I guess, and we'll just have to work at it. But I want to thank you for watching, and like, subscribe, do anything you can to help. A subscription would be very appreciated. Follow me on Twitter at NASCAREJ. Follow the channel at NASCARTube on Twitter. And don't have a Facebook page yet. Leave a like, leave a comment, give me some suggestions, give me some throwouts there of what we can do to help, or what we can do to try to make this channel work better. And I want to thank you for watching, and y'all have a nice night.